Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 190. Please be sure to follow, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel down in the comment section. Let me know, what is your favorite bet for week one? Because it's finally here. We've waited a long time. We've gone through the season previews, but it's time to dive into some actual NFL action with week one. I'm very, very excited. Basically, this is my favorite weekend of the year. I mean, the Sunday is just, it's like Christmas morning, waking up, knowing all the games are on. And I basically allocate way more money than I should to this week because it's very volatile. We'll get into that, but it's just one of my favorite weeks. So I'm expecting to if I lose some money, that's fine, but gonna have a good time firing it. A lot of bets and a lot of DraftKings lineups, and that's what we're gonna dive into this week. We're gonna get you all ready. We're gonna go game by game into each of the 12 games on the Sunday main slate. Go through DraftKings, some stacks, bets, how we see the games going. So even in your season long, we'll have all actionable advice for you. And joining me from the Mad Lab MMA, we have Mike Marangelli. Mike, how we doing?
Doing well, Derek. Doing well. What do you hear? What do you say, my friend?
I'm excited. You know, we went through the fantasy previews. You hopped on for the running backs last time, and it's finally here. We got action.
Oh man, it's honestly, it's like Christmas morning right now. We got games going on all weekend. I am super excited. And to your point, with the NFL being back on Sunday, it's football season, and it just doesn't get any better.
Yeah, and you know, it's basically 3 days during the season that I don't even care if I lose money. I mean, obviously the whole goal is to profit, but basically first game or first Sunday, Thanksgiving and Super Bowl. I have money put aside. I'm ready to go. So I am very excited for this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. I mean, we were talking to the cartel guys on madlabmma.com, and we were all talking about, we should play lighter. We should be, rolling back units, things like that. But inevitably, what I said is I think I'll probably have just as much action on this week as I normally would. I'm just gonna maybe roll back the money, the unit size just a bit to kind of help, because to your point, I'm so excited for week one. I really am. That I know I'm going to want action on as many games as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's a good transition there. Is first of all, go to themadlabmma.com with your MMA subscription. Everything is free for NFL. We are going to have tons of coverage over the weekend as far as bets for every single game. I'll have my contrarian corner breakdown for leverage for your DFS lineups. Johnny J Mac is going to be doing a live stream, I believe, on Sunday morning. So we got everything ready. Head over there. But as you said, this is a very volatile week. Everybody comes into week one thinking they know what's going to happen. They're going off of their priors for their drafts and who they like for the full season. But this is just 1 week. So what we're talking about today is we're not talking about season-long fantasy and how these guys are going to do over the course of the next couple months. This is literally just for this Sunday. So keep that in mind when you're making your bets, when you're building your DFS lineups. We don't care because a lot of people in DraftKings will set their lineups based on the way that they've been drafting their best ball teams, the way they've been drafting their season-long teams, and we're not playing that game. We're playing a one-day game. So keep that in mind. If you want to take a chance on a guy this week that maybe you wouldn't like in best ball or season-long, do it, because this is the week to do it. It can be very volatile. So we might as well just jump right into it because we got 12 games here, and it is a 12-game slate. The highest team totals on the slate, we have Cincinnati at 26.5, Washington at 25.8, and Tampa Bay at 25.5. So just keep that in mind, building DraftKings lineups. That they're probably some of the teams that you do want to target, but because of these high team totals, probably carry a bit of ownership with them as well. And then the lowest team totals on the slate are Tennessee at 17, the Jets at 17.8, and New Orleans at 18.5. So same thing from a DFS standpoint. Maybe stay away from those teams. You can maybe play one or two guys. But first game we got up on the docket is Vegas at New England. Now, there's a 43.5 point total in this game. New England favored by 3 points at home. Mike, why don't you kick it off? What do you think about this game? How do you see it going? And is there anything that you would want to target?
Yeah, this game's an interesting game for me because there are so many complexities within the game, right? You've got new coaches on both sides, on both teams. You've got, Pete Carroll coming in Las Vegas. He brought Geno Smith over. You've got Vrabel with Josh McDaniels back in New England. So there are some intriguing concepts within this game. As far from a betting perspective, this is one where with new coaches, with the new dynamics on both sides, I say tread carefully. Do not take what you're seeing. The common mistake, what I hear over and over again from pundits is you hear these guys, the talking heads, as I like to call them, talking about 2024 stats, right? Well, they're DVOA, they're past, defense, they're cover three. That doesn't matter with these two teams. You got brand new coaching staff. You got new complexities coming in. So tread carefully. Week one is a week where I look at that and I would say, the intrigue for me on these teams, Travion Henderson and the Ramondre Stevenson, what the dynamic there, what the split's going to be there. I really like Drake May this year. I think that he has some he's got some weapons there that are underrated. You got Williams, you've got Booty, they've got Hunter Henry with Travion, Stephon Diggs coming off of the ACL. So again, for me right now in this game, I probably lean on the over. I see both of these teams. I see their offenses a little bit ahead of their defenses in terms of talent on both sides, on both teams. And so for me, I'm going to lean on the over on this. But it's probably not a game that I'm going to focus my attention on right now, just because there are so many unknowns.
Yeah, I think that you put that perfectly. And for me, I think that's why, especially from a DraftKings standpoint, probably stay away. As I said before, we think we know things, but we really don't know much. So I think if you can go after and target some of the things where there's a little bit of a sound workload for a guy, or somebody's going to get a target share, maybe there's a condensed route tree, maybe we should target those in week one. And this to me just isn't it, because like you said, we have different coaching staffs. We have Geno. I mean, you said you lean over. I kind of see it coming around this, so I probably wouldn't lean under or over. Just don't know how Geno's going to do. I do think the Patriots have a pretty good defense, and then New England doesn't have a great offensive line. Vegas has a great defensive line. So does that disrupt Drake May? That concerns me a little bit. From a DraftKings standpoint, May is definitely cheap at only 5.5K. But who do you pair him with this early in the season? We have no idea who he's going to look to. If I had to gun to my head pick someone, oddly, it would probably be Hunter Henry. He probably has the safest role here. But you said it too with the backfield. I know people are in love with Henderson. I know he can obviously break one from anywhere. 5.5K, he's not cheap to the point where you just need 12 points from him. And if he's not getting the workload, does he really have the ceiling to win you a DraftKings tournament? I just feel like week one, it might be getting a little cute. Now, if we move to the next game, Carolina at Jacksonville, this actually is a pretty interesting game because I do think that both defenses are not great, especially Carolina's. 40.5 is the total here, so one of the higher totals on the slate. Jacksonville favored by 3.5 at home. I do like these stacks here with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Brian Thomas is 6.8K. Hunter's only 5K, so you can go T-Law with both of them, or you can go Thomas and Brenton Strange, who's only 3.3K. That's a nice cheap stack there. I do think that because of the price and projection, Lawrence probably does get pretty popular. I could see him being maybe one of the top 5 highest owned quarterbacks on this slate, but I'm definitely going to be playing quite a bit of him with some stacks, and it's easy to bring it back because on Carolina's side, without Coker there, you're using Tet McMillan. You know that they're going to give the ball to Hubbard. And then, I mean, if you even wanted to, you could go Bryce Young, Tet, and Sanders. Sanders is only 2.9K. That's another cheap stack on that side. And then you know the guys that we just went over to bring it back on the other side. I'm staying away from the backfield in Jacksonville. Just, again, too many mouths to feed. We have no idea how it's going to break down. I get making a case for any or all of them, but you would just either have to get completely lucky closing your eyes and throwing a dart, or allocate so many of your DraftKings lineups to get it right that I'm willing to stay away in week one. What are you thinking in this one?
No, I agree with you 100%. From a DK perspective, I think Lawrence is going to end up being very popular. I think a lot, just the metrics and the fact that the Carolina defense struggled a little bit. There's some questions in the secondary. I think you're going to see Lawrence in the top 5 at quarterback. I think Strange at tight end might be a popular pairing with him. So, again, depending on how you're building lineups, I might look, honestly, I would probably just go Brian Thomas Jr. because I think he might end up being a little lower owned than like Hunter and Strange, just from a price perspective. But overall, yeah, I'm not touching the backfield until I get a couple weeks to see how that's going to shake out. From a DFS perspective, it's just not there for me right now. I don't want to have to gamble on, picking ATN or I'm not doing that. So for me, it's Lawrence. The sneaky one there a little bit for me would be if I was to take, Bryce Young and pair him with McMillan. I kind of like that almost a little more in this game. And then bringing it back with someone on the Jacksonville side, one of the receivers. That's just it just feels like that is in a game that has a shootout potential with both question marks on the defense. I just like that maybe a little bit more from a gambling perspective, just a game total perspective. 46.5. That feels like it's sharp, but again, lean the over on that from DraftKings. And then from a team perspective, it's interesting that Jacksonville's at -3.5 with just, again, I guess with Cohen come back or coming in as coach, and then you've got, playing at home. I'm not sure I take that on the side. I think it's a close game. So, maybe the +3.5 on Carolina, if you're looking for a game pick there. But like I said, I think my favorite out of that is the over 46.5 at -115 right now. That's just probably my favorite play.
Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be scoring in this game. It's probably the reason why people are looking to get a piece of it in DraftKings. I'd say probably the most popular, if guys aren't stacking this game, is probably just you take Brian Thomas, you take Tet McMillan, those are the ones for each team, and you go on your way. So, if people are looking at a skinny stack, that's a possibility. I would just say there's probably going to be some ownership, and definitely Bryce Young probably comes in half, maybe even less the ownership that Lawrence does. So there's definitely some ways we can get different in this, and maybe a little foreshadowing. I don't know. Maybe in my article, there'll be some ways to do that with this game. But if we keep moving on here, we have Arizona at New Orleans. 43.5 is the total here. The bulk of that is coming from Arizona with a 25-point total. Arizona is 6.5-point favorites on the road. Now, I honestly wouldn't mind taking the 6.5. I know they're going to be a lot of people's survivor pick, but New Orleans, I think they are just dead on arrival here. I do trust in Kellen Moore to get it together in some games. I just don't think this is it right out of the gates. I wouldn't mind taking the 6.5. I actually did tease down Philadelphia tonight and then actually Arizona. So I'm getting Arizona giving up a 0.5 point on a 6-point teaser. So I like them quite a bit. I like them to be playing from ahead. So I'm going to play a bunch of Connor. I know I'm not going to be alone with that. With his workload, as I said, when we know guys are going to get the ball, I mean, you're heavy favorites on the road with a high total in a dome. He's going to get the ball quite a bit. When they get up, they'll give him the ball, and he might even be a good reason why they do get up. Kyler scares me a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to get there with him at 6,400 on DraftKings, but I definitely could see a case for him going off here, and he might not be that popular. So you could pair him with Harrison, you could pair him with McBride, have interest in playing Arizona's defense. And on New Orleans side, I want absolutely nothing to do with that, but potentially an underplay as well, because I do think, or you could maybe do Arizona team total and get there over there, because I do think that they put up points, but I see New Orleans, I see them struggling to even be able to get to 14 points here. So what are you thinking here, Mike?
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. For me, it's all about Arizona. I want nothing to do with New Orleans right now. I just, Rattler as a starting quarterback does not inspire confidence with me on that offense. So I just got to stay off, because I think you load the box against Kamara, and there's just, I just don't see a path for them to be able to score enough to keep up with Arizona. So I lean the under on the game. I lean the over on Arizona's team total, because I just see them. It wouldn't surprise me at the end of at the end of the day if it was a 31-7 game, and game total hits under there. So so for me, I'm like I said, I love anything Arizona, but Connor is Connor and McBride are the two guys that I trust the most with them right now early in the season. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued on this game with a Murray Harrison type stack. I'm not sure I'm going to get there. I'm not sure I'm going to play it. I'm not sure I'm brave enough to play it yet. But I just feel like that's where, this season might be the season that we see a little bit more of an emphasis on making Harrison the alpha, that we thought he was going to be coming out of college last year. So for me, like I said, there's some intrigue there. I'm not sure I'll get there. And then obviously, but definitely from James Conner perspective at 6,100. I mean, I just don't know how you don't play him, because I think, early in the season, I think they're going to get ahead. I think they're going to want to run the ball. To me, it's probably a Connor game, and I like that play just so much that I just don't. Again, I'm going to have a lot of Connor in my lineups for sure.
Yeah, and you make a good point too with Harrison. I mean, if you're gonna make him the focal point, if you're gonna make him a key part of the game plan, why not come out and do it right away out of the gates here, especially against what is a team that you're supposed to beat the shit out of? I mean, come out and get him going early and start off on the right foot. So I said I don't want to play Kyler, but I mean, looking at it, he probably does have one of the highest ceilings of anybody on this slate. So we'll see where the ownership comes in. I don't expect him to get very popular. I would expect most people are going to go up and want to most likely play either Burrow or Daniels, and then maybe skip over him. So if he comes in low owned, and I mean, like I said, he does have the ceiling, it's definitely something I'm going to have to consider here.
Yeah, I mean, the only drawback that I see is the fact that if they get up big, they just stop throwing the ball, and that's my only concern in this game with Kyler is that I just don't know from an opportunity standpoint if he ends up with only needing to throw the ball, 24, 25 times total. And so, where you've got a couple other games here where I think there is going to be a necessity to throw the ball a lot more from some quarterbacks. It's the only drawback I see, because again, if I'm reading the tea leaves and you want to get up, if you're Arizona and you want to get the ball rolling on a new season and you want to make him, showcase that you understand where you went wrong last year, getting Murray and Harrison to connect early and often is the way to do that. So, but like I said, my concern just becomes that there's nothing coming back at you on the New Orleans side at all. So,
yeah. And really the case for Kyler is, I mean, you said it, that there's probably not going to be a huge passing volume. You hope that they go early to Harrison and maybe get a touchdown in maybe the first couple drives. Then Kyler does a little bit something with his legs too. And then in the second half, they can use Connor, but Kyler and whoever he's throwing it to got them there in the first place. So that's kind of what you're hoping on there.
right.
Next game is probably the most popular game on the DraftKings slate here. Cincinnati at Cleveland, 47.5 is the total. Cincinnati 5.5 point favorites on the road. Mike, what are you thinking in this one?
I mean, this is going to be a game that I'm going to have pieces of both in gambling and in DFS. I think you have to, because I just think you got a bad defense on the Cincinnati side. You got an offense that can score a ton. So I just feel like shootout is written all over this. My only concern is Cleveland and can they keep up? But with Flacco and some of the weapons that they have, Njoku and Tillman and Judy, I hope that they can. And if they can, then, my view on this game is it shoots out. So for me, I love Cincinnati minus 5.5. To me, that's the play. I think Cincinnati cannot start 0-1 against Cleveland. They cannot do this. Zach Taylor would be, in my opinion, should be fired if he comes out and loses this game, because you cannot put yourself in a hole like you have done your previous 3 seasons. You have to come out ready to play. So for me, it's that's the play, is the Cincinnati side. I like that bet. But on the DFS side, it's funny, but I kind of like Flacco at 4,900. If you put, if I'm playing Flacco and Njoku, and then, you come back with like Higgins, to kind of get a little, avoid. I mean, all you're trying to avoid there is the Burrow to Chase going absolutely nuclear, which
is concerning.
Right. Yeah. Which is risky. Right. I agree. I'm not saying it's not a little crazy, but to me, the Flacco side is really intriguing in this game because, he has a history of starting off, strong. He's had over 270 yards passing in, I think, the last 6 week 1 starts that he's had. So he's a guy who typically starts off strong. He's thrown for over 260 yards in since 2022. I think he's had 16 total starts. He's thrown for over 260 yards. I think 13 times is what I read this morning. So I think his stats, lead me to believe that I think Joe can keep up on against a bad defense. What really, does not seem like they have fixed that problem at all. So that's kind of where I lean. What about you, man? Where's your head at on this game?
I share pretty much the same sentiment. Now, what worries me from a DraftKings standpoint is I think everybody has that sentiment.
Yeah.
Clearly Cincinnati's did nothing to improve their defense, so they're going to be terrible. Clearly, Joe Flacco, when he was on this team before, did nothing but throw to Judy and Njoku. So I do expect that to be a very, very popular stack. It is Flacco to Judy, Njoku, bring it back with either a Chase Brown or most likely Jamar Chase. So I like what you said, bringing it back with Higgins. That probably does get you a little bit different. And then me constantly thinking about ways to, because, there's always obviously good chalk and bad chalk. Jamar Chase tends to be pretty good chalk. I worry a little bit about this defensive line with how terrible Cincy's offensive line has looked. Cleveland has given Burrow trouble in the past, so maybe that's a path if you are looking to fade. You can make a big enough case to get away from it, but I will definitely have some exposure to this team here. And then I think a way you can get different is if everybody's playing this game and everybody loves it, I mean, just go all in on it, basically. I think, especially from like a Millie Maker type build, there's so many games and people want to get so many parts of so many different things here. I think if, let's say, this game just far and away shoots out and has a total over 50, and it's the only game that gets to over 50, and you just decided that you're going to throw all your eggs in this basket, you go Flacco to Jerry Jeudy and Njoku and bring it back with both Chase and Higgins. And I mean, if this game shoots out, you still get there with the Cincy side with Chase and Higgins. And obviously, if they're getting there, they're bringing Burrow's bringing them along with them. But if Cleveland can keep up and Flacco goes nuts at $2,000 less in salary, then it actually makes a lot of sense there. So I think you actually could do that. And I mean, with that exact stack with Flacco, Judy, Higgins, Chase, Njoku, you still have a remaining $5,125. So you can make a pretty solid lineup there if you wanted to go all in on this game.
Yeah, you make a great point that sometimes, especially in the choice in which the format in which you're playing, the tournament in which you're playing, or whether it's a cash game tournament, single entry, 3-entry max, whatever, that makes a huge difference. But if you're playing that large format, that large style format like the Millie Maker, then absolutely, I think that's the way you almost have to sell out and hope that the game shoots to the moon, and it's a total shootout, and it outscores every other game by double digits, and that's really what you're playing for, right? And if you're building in those type of formats, you almost have to build a bunch of different lineups. And that, if you play a couple of lineups in that where you sell out in this game, if this is the game that you're really looking at and you really believe the most in, then that's, like I said, it's a great call on your part, because it is something that you can do and still have some talent, or pull a piece or two from another game that you might like. I think it's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And if you're playing a single entry or a smaller field tournament, then maybe you still want exposure to this game and you don't need to get that crazy. And then you just do a Chase with a Judy or a Njoku with Chase Brown and just take a small piece because you think there's going to be scoring in this game, but you don't need to overextend yourself. Now, this next game I have a lot of interest in as well. Miami at Indy is 47.5. So another high total. Indy favored at home. The stank on Miami is real. I mean, that's all we've heard all offseason, all training camp, all preseason is just they suck. McDaniel's getting fired. Tyreek Hill is old and washed and hurt, and nobody likes him. Tua's going to get a concussion on the first play. Achane has a calf injury. Waddle doesn't even exist anymore. Blah, 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 blah. This is the first game. They're all supposedly healthy, practicing, playing together in a dome. If this was 2 years ago or even the beginning of last year, they would be priced so much higher than this, and everybody would be lining up to play them. Nobody wants anything to do with Miami. I will have a shit ton of Tua stacks with Hill, with Achane, with Waddle. I am stacking this game up, and I actually think that people will play Daniel Jones on the other side. And I mean, he's won people Millie Makers before, and this is probably a pretty good offense and okay receiving core. So you could do it, but it concerns me a little bit. Who do you go with? I probably prefer Downs over Pittman, but we could see an Alec Pierce getting in there. Obviously, Tyler Warren, I think, would probably be my go-to with Jones. And then you can have a Jonathan Taylor bring back with your Dolphin stacks here. So I like this one quite a bit. And from a betting standpoint, I'm actually leaning towards Miami here at getting 1.5 points. I'd probably just take the money line. I could see them outright winning here. It could be, I could see it being a high scoring game, and maybe Daniel Jones just makes a couple boneheaded plays, fumbles, or just tries to run when he shouldn't. And Miami ends up winning a close game. So I think getting the money line at plus money actually might be on the table for me here. What are you thinking?
So I lean Miami money line. It's gone down. It was at plus money early in the week, and it was really attractive to me, and it's slowly been coming down. It's now minus 108. And so I'm like, well, do you take Miami and tease it? I actually went the other way, and I took the Colts and teased it in kind of a little bit of a bankroll builder that I built for our subs. But from a DFS perspective, this is actually one of my favorite plays because I'm with you. Early in the season, you've got Tua, you've got Waddle, you've got Hill. Colts are not a dominant defense. They're not bad, but they're a middle of the road defense. You've got a lot of weapons. HN is going to play. He looks to be practicing in a limited fashion all week. He's trending towards playing. I think the stack is going to be much lower owned in a game that I do. I like. I think the over is in play in this game. I really do. So for me, I'm with you. I really, it's a game that's intriguing to me just because I want to see, is Miami truly what we've been saying? And I throw myself in that boat, right? I said it last week when we were talking about some things that I said, there are guys on the Miami secondary I've never heard of before. But in reality, so it just leads itself to shoot out, right? I would think that's where this game goes, but there's a lot of intrigue. I want to see McDaniels. I want to see how he responds. I think, can he fight back? Is he going to scheme up this team? Can he coach him back up to those 2022 and 23 levels? Or, what are we seeing here was last year reality? So a lot of intrigue in this game. I'm very curious about this game, but the guy that I really like the most is Waddle. I just think he has been the forgotten man. And a couple of years ago, we were talking about him as a genuine, 1B to the 1A of Tyreek. So,
I think with Jonnu gone too, he takes over that role.
Yes.
So he could get a shit ton of that intermediate short stuff.
Absolutely. No, you're right. I mean, again, I just don't believe that Waller is a guy who's going to step in and take that, with any, I just don't believe it.
Yep.
If he proves me wrong, he proves me wrong. But a guy who retired to become a rapper or whatever he ended up doing for a year or something like that, and now he's coming back, I just don't, I just question it all around. I'm with you. I like Waddle in the short and intermediate routes. And I think Tua lives, likes to live in that realm right now. And so especially with some questions on the offensive line, getting quick releases, I can see McDaniels, kind of scheming that way. So like I said, we'll see what happens, but I have a lot of intrigue in this game.
Yeah, I'll definitely have parts of it. And if Achane doesn't get in a full practice, maybe in some larger field stuff, it might be a little cute because there are so many good running back plays on the slate, but Ollie Gordon at 4.2K, he's super cheap piece. If everybody's going to be paying up for the McCaffreys on this slate and the Bijans, it gets you different, and maybe it allows you to pay up elsewhere. Again, maybe getting too cute, but just monitor HN. He might actually be worth a play. Next, we have Giants at Washington. 45.5 is the total here. Washington 6-point favorites at home. I have heard some people think the Giants could hang around here. Division game, first game. They expect maybe a step back from Washington's offense. I don't trust it enough to bet it. I could see it. I wouldn't be surprised. I think this is more of maybe a live bet if you see the Giants putting up a fight, and maybe you don't get as good of a number if they are, but I'd probably rather see it first. I'm not going to jump in. And then from a DFS standpoint, it's easy with this one. You go Daniels. You could either do him naked or with Terry, who nobody's probably going to want him after sitting out. I don't love him because, it could take some big plays. He was very touchdown reliant, but in a DFS setting, all you need is one big game. So I actually like Debo quite a bit here too at only 5.2K. I do think that they try and get him involved. I mean, you've had Kingsbury try and get little guys in the slot to be his gadget guys and do these things on these screens. Debo is built perfectly for that. So I could see them getting him involved early. 5.2K, I think, is worth the price there to take a stab at him. And then obviously, if you want to play anybody from the Giants, it's just neighbors for me. Maybe taking a shot on Theo Johnson because he's only $3,000. But again, maybe getting too cute there. Any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sure I'm going to bet this game. That -6 line kind of scares me because the Giants have played them tough. I know they're on the road. I know it's the first week of the season, but it feels a bunch of the money's going on the Commanders, and the line really hasn't moved. And so now those are the kinds of red flags that I go, ooh. Something here doesn't. It's kind of starting to kind of little flashes of red are kind of popping up for me. So for me, I'm probably off of this game from a betting perspective. If you're looking from a player prop perspective, maybe I get into the Daniels rushing prop or something like that. But just from a game perspective, I'm not betting it. From a DFS perspective, though, I'm with you. So I like the Daniels. I like the Daniels and Debo play. I'm probably, but part of me looked at it and went, well, you talked about Johnson, and I hadn't really thought about it until you just said him. And I go, as a min play against a defense that, this is a defense that is coming back from largely intact last year. They're running the same scheme, and they weren't great against the tight end last year. And so here's one where I say, well, have they made improvements? I know we're not, I don't like to talk about last year, and I don't like to talk about that stuff, but I also look at it and I go, well, for a min play at 3,000 in the right kind of setting, it's so cheap. And if you're min playing there and you're min playing on defense to kind of build your money up so that you can spend that at wide receiver, running back, that might be an interesting kind of team build, I guess is what I'm saying.
And they literally only have Neighbors to throw to. So,
right.
I mean, he's an athletic freak. So I do think he's going to get some targets, and he's talented enough where he can maybe do something with those targets where a lot of other tight ends, especially down at this price, are basically just catching the ball and falling down, and you're hoping they score a touchdown.
Exactly. And Russell Wilson is shown that he's still able to get the ball out. My only concern with him is a lot of his passes last year, with the Steelers, he had this weird, like, big looping pass that he started throwing, and I wasn't sure where that came from. I don't know if that's just age and arm strength going away from him, and so that's what he's doing. I'm hoping that maybe it was a mechanics thing. He's kind of got that fixed with Dayball, but that's my concern.
I think a lot of it is. I mean, he used to always throw those moon balls, but he used to have a lot more zip on it. So I don't think it looked as much of like a punt as it does recently.
It's a good point by you, right? You're right. He did, because he was a shorter guy. He always threw the ball. He had that high arc, but you're right. He had some zip, and last year it felt like that he kind of lost it. So
yeah,
that's my only worry about him. But like I said, for a 3,000, he's an athletic tight end, and for such a low price, it just feels like you could start to build a little differently there.
Yeah. So we got Pittsburgh at the Jets. 38.5 is the total on this one. Pittsburgh 3-point favorites on the road. No thanks. That's my analysis on this one. I mean, I'm a Jet fan, so I'm going to sit through this shit show, but I want nothing to do with anybody. I mean, if I had to play someone, Fields, because of the rushing upside, hope that he over targets Garrett Wilson. You can make a case for DK on the other side, but obviously Sauce is probably going to be there. How good is Rodgers going to be in his first game? The backfield and the Steelers, we still need to pan out how it's going to go. Probably lean Warren, but I'm not going to trust it. So I don't trust anything in this game. What about you?
No, from a DFS perspective, I don't know how you could possibly play anyone in this game with A, such a low total, and B, so many question marks all around the board there. And so I'm not going. There are just too many better options. If you want to get weird, you can get weird in 5 or 6 other games. To me, I'm not doing it with this game. And from a betting perspective, it's a pass. I guess the under, because I think this game might end up being 14-10 maybe. But I just have no interest in it. And so to your point, pass. There's far better opportunities on the slate.
Yep, and one of which is the last one that we have at the early slate. Tampa Bay at Atlanta, 47.5. Again, one of the higher totals on the slate. Tampa 2.5-point favorites on the road. I do think that this game gets extremely popular. It's obviously pretty easy where you go. You go Baker, you go Evans, Igbuka. Igbuka is probably going to be one of the 3 highest owned guys on the slate at 4.6K with no Godwin. He's going to get plenty of playing time, and he's going to be targeted. So are you willing to eat the chalk with him? Do you think it's maybe worth going elsewhere? Because he is cheap. He is going to get targeted in what should be a good game environment.
So you're right. And all the game logic in me says, yes, Ibuka is worth the chalk with Baker. I mean, again, this game, the offensive potential in this game is high. It is another game where I can see, again, shootout tendency where, you're going above the over on this game. And so I see why people are there. I'm not willing to go to Ibuka yet. Only because, I just want to, I just don't know what the route tree is. I don't know, they could do some weird things and put, Shepard in there or I don't know. And I'm just worried about that. I'm just worried about how much he plays. I'm worried that we've all, drank the Kool-Aid and we're all expecting him to just step into the Godwin role. And next thing you know, he's only getting 60% of that route tree. And they're going to, there are other guys who have been on the team before. The McMillan out now too, it does make it a little easier for me. But like I said, I'm probably not eating the chalk at Ibuka. I'm looking at it and I just like, I like Irving. The guy that is intriguing to me is a 3,800 Kate Otten because I just think he's got touchdown potential against this defense. That to me is where I look at it and I say, Otten, he's healthy. When Godwin was out last year, when those guys were out, he did step into a more receiving type role. And so, like I said, I'm probably not going with Ibuka in my lineups this week. And maybe I'll regret it, but I'm willing to take that and like I said, avoid. From an actual game betting perspective, I love the over 46.5 on this game. I just think both offenses will put up some points. I have some minor concerns about Penix and where, just how much from what we saw of him, can he make the jump? Can he take the, next step there? But, he's got a lot of weapons and with Bijan and you got, London and Pitts. I just like the over. I think both teams score.
Yeah, it definitely is a great game environment. And for that reason, I'm willing to eat the Ibuka chalk. Just the fact that I think he's going to have to be relied upon. I do think that they're going to throw. And I mean, I kind of like him more with Baker stacks. I'm going to have a lot of Baker stacks, not just with Ibuka. I think it does make sense to throw Otten in there. And that's a really cheap stack right there, where you go Evans and Ibuka or Evans and Otten. And then basically you're just bringing it back with a Drake London or Bijan. Another thing I am monitoring is Mooney's practicing. Although we didn't think he was going to be able to play, if he's healthy enough to practice all week and he's a full go, nobody's going to play him whatsoever. And we saw Kirk Cousins hitting him down the field last year. And I mean, that's the ghost of Kirk Cousins. Penix has a rifle. He looks to throw it deep. Yeah. So I think him and Mooney could actually be a sneaky little thing. I'm not going to play Penix himself, but I'm going to play a lot of Baker stacks. I'm going to play a lot of just Tampa Bay stacks. I like your call on Bucky Irving. I think if everybody is targeting the Tampa passing game here, it makes a ton of sense to go to Irving. And if he's the one that goes off, then, I mean, you gain some leverage there and got a pretty good play, and he's not too expensive there. So I do like London. I do like Bijan. I do like Mooney. And then I'm going to be targeting this Tampa side pretty heavily here.
Yeah, the Irving for me, it's just being different, right? I know he's a little bit high, he's a higher priced running back, but he's not in that top tier. And at 7,100, I just think he's not going to be the guy in that range that many people look at.
Exactly.
To your point, I think, and so, I think the Ibuka and Baker stack is going to be so highly owned that, maybe going Otten, Irving, and is just a way to get a piece of this game. Again, depending on the contest and things like that, it's just a way to get a piece of the game and not necessarily have to eat the chalk in Ibuka. But like I said, I like him. It all lines up for him. It really does. And I guess I'm from a week one perspective. I'm looking at it saying, well, maybe he doesn't quite get the route tree that we think he's going to get, and and the number of routes that we think he's going to get, and so he doesn't go completely off. And now you're just sitting there going, well, damn, I wish I had Evans, or I wish I wish I had some other pieces in the game.
Yeah. And just to touch on Irving again before we get off this game, people can pay $200 more for Christian McCaffrey. Right. That tells you all you need to know about Irving's ownership.
Right. That's exactly right.
And probably in a better game environment as well. Now, is he Christian McCaffrey? No, that's not what I'm saying. But when we're talking about a one-game sample size, could he outscore McCaffrey in what's a better game environment? Absolutely. And you probably get it at, half, maybe even a third of the ownership.
And that's the key, right? That's what you said is exactly right, and what we've been talking about. What you said at the beginning of the show, and right there is it's pitch perfect. We're not talking about Bucky Irving comparing to McCaffrey, but when you look at it from a build perspective for DFS, it's about minimum. If you can get a guy who has the ability to score just as many, if not more, in my opinion, bit better game environment, and less ownership, less people are going to have him. That's the key to winning these things. That's the key to getting money. That's how you make money in DFS.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we head to the late slate of games, we just talked about McCaffrey. He's in this one.
There it is.
San Francisco at Seattle, 43.5 is the total here. San Francisco, 2.5 point favorites on the road. I did take San Francisco and the 2.5 points in division on the road, laying points. Historically, not great. I do think that San Francisco comes out here, though, and beats Seattle. I do think that as the year goes on, Seattle could be a little bit better than what people are giving them credit for. But with Darnold here on a new team, still trying to get acclimated with Kupp. Walker was hurt for a lot of this preseason. I just think this San Francisco defense just kind of beats up on this Seattle offensive line and causes enough problems for Darnold, and they can pull it out here by a field goal. So I did make that bet. I like that quite a bit. And with a healthy for now McCaffrey, Kittle, Pearsall, Purdy, I think that they have a little bit more firepower to get it done. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I lean from a betting perspective. I like the 2, and 2.5 is kind of a sweet spot for me. And when I see that, and to your point, I just look at the weapons on the San Francisco side of the ball with Jennings getting his contract, and miraculously now is healthy, right? And now you've got Pearsall, and you put in Kittle, you've got CMC. And then the X factor for me when I look at this game is Robert Saleh as coming back to San Francisco as a defensive coordinator. Really good mind defensively. Not a good head coach, but a great defensive mind. And that too well. But he's a guy who I think you've given him time to scheme. I just think he can build a defensive scheme here for this game to give Seattle some problems. I agree with you. I think Seattle's going a little underrated in the division. There are some question marks. Can Cooper Kupp, withstand the season? Does he have anything left in the tank? To go in with JSN as kind of the weapons for Darnold. But overall, again, in a week one environment, I like San Francisco. I like it. It's probably close. It's, a field goal, maybe 2 field goal kind of game. I do think the total in this game is sneaky because people are going to want to bet the over, right? Right now it's at 43.5. They go, oh man, that's so low. You got the weapons on San Francisco, but this is a divisional game, tough on the road. And so I'm staying away from the total. I like San Francisco minus 2.5. Now I will say that from a DFS perspective, it's tough. The problem I have is I just don't. If you're playing Purdy, if let's say you believe in that you're going to play Purdy at 6,200, the question I have is, well, do you keep it plain Jane and go Kittle? He is or do you play CMC? But I think he's going to be uber owned because he's healthy and all that. So then you start looking at the wide receivers, and again, do you play Jennings? How many play? He didn't play at all. He hardly practiced in training camp. And so my question is just like, what's he going to get? So then I go, well, maybe Pearsall, at 4,500, and you play Purdy with Pearsall. And the question is, do you come back on it with anything on the other side? What do you think? Where would you go?
So first with CMC, he's going to be at least 30% owned. And, we talk about good chalk, bad chalk. If Christian McCaffrey is healthy, it's good chalk. So I think it's fine to play him. So now what we say is, okay, if we're playing him, how do we get different? Don't play Egbuka in a CMC lineup for one. That's definitely, stay away from that. And then Pearsall is actually going to be pretty popular as well. Probably less than Egbuka, but only 4.5K. You said it. Jennings has been out, so he's probably going to be popular there. So what I would say is most people that play Purdy are probably going to play it with a Pearsall and or Kittle, probably both of them, because it's cheap enough and it makes sense because Purdy doesn't run a lot, so you want it with two pass catchers. You could just do it with Purdy and CMC, and you could throw in Jennings if you want a cheap another one, but CMC catches plenty of passes. So if all the scoring goes through CMC and Purdy throws for 2 and pays off his price, most people are probably not playing CMC with Purdy. So that right there, despite the fact that 30% or more are playing CMC, what are maybe 10%, probably even less than that, playing Purdy with CMC. So you immediately got different from 20% of the field right there. So these are just things to keep in mind when you are playing a chalky guy. If I'm bringing it back with anybody on Seattle, I'm not going to take a stab on Cooper Kupp, who looked terrible the last couple times we saw him. We have no idea what his role is. JSN, I do think, is a solid number 1 wide receiver. I worry a little bit about his upside in the totality of the season, but in a 1-game slate, I'm willing to take a chance on it. Same goes for Ken Walker. We've seen him be a home run hitter. We've seen him get hurt all the time, so maybe he gets you 1 point and he's out of the game, but I do think that those are the two that have the highest ceiling. They are not high priced. Walker at 5.9K and JSN at 5.8, so they make for perfect bringbacks if you want Purdy stacks or if you just wanted to go with a CMC in one of those two.
I like the Purdy CMC stack. That's an interesting way, to your point, to diversify yourself from what is a 30% ownership on CMC, or 30 plus really. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and obviously in most situations, let's say you're playing Connor and Kyler. That doesn't make sense. Connor, sure, he'll catch passes, he'll score a receiving touchdown every once in a while, but he's not primarily a pass catching back. So that's anti-correlated there. Whereas Purdy, he can absolutely dump it off to McCaffrey, and McCaffrey can go for a long touchdown. So I think it actually makes quite a bit of sense.
Yeah, I agree.
Next, we have Tennessee at Denver. This is the highest spread on this Sunday slate, 8.5. Denver is favored at home. 42.5 is the total. I kind of lean towards Denver, maybe not covering this number, but probably winning by a touchdown. So I don't love anything on the Tennessee side. If you wanted to play Ridley, fine, just because he's going to be the one there, but we have no idea what Cam Ward is. Pollard, yeah, he's going to get most of the work, but against this Denver defense, do we really care? And if they're trailing a lot, how much work is he really going to get? Right. So I don't like anything on Tennessee side. I love Bo Nix this year. Don't know if I love him in this game because I don't see them being pushed too much. If I was going to do anything there, it would probably be Nix and Sutton, but at their prices, I just think there's better places to go on this slate. Not touching the backfield, Dobbins, Harvey, we don't know where that's really going to split up. So I'm kind of out on this game. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'm from a DFS perspective, I'm really not touching this game. There are better values on other games. Too many question marks for me in the backfield to your point, I normally would like Pollard, especially early with Spears on IR to start the season. I normally would like it, but the game script in this game just feels like it's going to get away from them quickly. And so I'm not, I'm just not going to be on it this week. From a betting perspective, I'm with you. I think the number's probably a little high, 8.5. Denver doesn't feel like the kind of offense that is just going to, blow them out of the water. You know what I mean? I don't know. They're good. I mean, I like the pieces on the offense. I just don't see them as a supremely dynamic offense. So I'm with you that the 8.5 feels large, but the one play that I'm looking at just from a prop perspective is the Denver defense and special teams as a potential. Whether you're playing the interception line on Cam Ward or maybe looking at sacks, I would look at that defense because I think they have the potential to do some things there. Again, if you want to get real weird and you want to go with an anytime touchdown, sure, go ahead. If you're that kind of prop better. But I would look at interceptions for Cam Ward. I would look at sack totals. That's where I would focus my attention more so than the game itself in this game, just because I think 8.5 is just a little too early in the year. Again, we just don't have enough information. And so I feel like 8.5 is a big number.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I like the call on Denver's D because I definitely think that's the way you definitely want to exploit this game. It's probably the strongest unit in this game, and you probably have the most confidence in them, whereas especially offensively from player to player, you don't really know where it's going to go this early in the season. So I like that call with the defense. Now, the next game is an interesting one because it doesn't seem like too many people have a lot of interest in it. And it's Detroit at Green Bay, 47.5. So still a very healthy total. What are you thinking in this one, Mike?
Well, as a Bears fan, this is probably the game that I want to watch the most on the slate for a variety of reasons. Number one is I want to watch Detroit. I want to see what happens with two new coordinators. I want to see what happens, with the offensive scheme and the defensive scheme and how they're going to play. And then with Green Bay, first and foremost, I want to see if Love is healthy. I want to see if that thumb is healed from the surgery and things like that. I have a lot of intrigue in this game, though, because if you believe that the offense in Detroit, again, because of the symmetry with Morton coming up through the system and things like that, their new offensive coordinator, then this is going to be a game where you could probably get a stack that's going to be relatively low ownership, and you might see some points in this game. Even though the Green Bay defense with Parsons added to the mix should be improved and things like that, and your Detroit defense with Hutchinson coming back again, you're getting some players back that both defenses are strong. It still leads me to believe like the total here, the game total might be in play. It's 47.5, and I could very easily see this game being 28-24, and both defenses play relatively well. It's just that the offenses just have that much talent surrounding them. So like I said, this game intrigues me a lot. The question mark I have is, and I lean to you, the expert, is where and how you would use the players in this game to stack and play, because there's just, do you go Golden? Do you believe that the rookie steps into that role there with Love? Is it Dobbs at 4,300? I'm not sure I can lean on Reed right now with the foot thing going on, and not sure how much he's going to play, at least early in the season. So there's just so many questions. Kraft is there and things like that. So like I said, what do you see? What lead me, because I have interest in this game, Derek. Lead me to what I should play.
So yeah, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here because as I said, I think we should target things that we know. We know there's a solid workload. We know who's going to be the one. We know kind of how the game flow is going to go. This one, we have no idea. But this one, from a game theory standpoint, DFS-wise, I'm willing to embrace the volatility because we know what the ceiling is for both of these teams and most of the players on it. I don't like the Lions this year as much as I did last year. You touched on it. I think the defense is improved. They lost both of their coordinators. Is there an adjustment period in the first game there? Goff's going to be playing. He's calling a lot more plays at the line, and that was an issue in LA before he left. So there's a lot of things I don't like. Green Bay, same thing. There's a lot of questions there. Are they going to be run heavy? Are they going to be pass heavy? I don't care about any of it. From a DFS standpoint, people don't want to play this game. This is one of the highest total games on the slate. It has some of the most usable pieces. Now, there's a lot of them, so you have to allocate a good amount of lineups. I think if you're playing a 3-max or just a single entry, maybe you just take a shot, but I'm actually going to allocate a good amount of my lineups to this game. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to go with Goff stacks, but I do have interest in Amon-Ra. I do have interest in Jameson. I have plenty of interest in Gibbs, Montgomery. I'm going to have pieces in them. More so one-offs. I don't think I'm going to overstack it. Mm-hmm. On the Green Bay side, I am more likely to stack it because I do think that it's a little more concentrated, which is ridiculous to say for Green Bay because that's never been the case. But Wicks kind of seems to be an afterthought at this point. Reed has a Jones fracture. For people that don't know what that is a break in your 5th metatarsal. That is the outside bone in your foot. As a wide receiver, you kind of need that to make cuts. I don't see how this guy is going to last the season and potentially even this game. So I don't like him at all, which makes it much easier. If you want to stack Love, you go with the kid, you go with Golden. We don't know what he is, but who knows? Maybe he comes out and he's the best receiver of the class. We have no idea. So I'm willing to take a chance on that. Dobbs, I think, has a rapport with Love. I think he has some upside. He can be a red zone threat. And then Tucker Kraft. We said it before with some of these athletic tight ends. When they can get stuff after the catch, they can get there on 3 catches. Whereas a lot of these other tight ends, you need volume from them. You need them just to score a touchdown. He could have 3 catches for 75 yards. And while that's not incredible and maybe not taking down a GPP for you, it's better than some of these other guys that are cheaper that are just going to catch 3 passes and fall down. So I'd say it's Love, Dobbs, Golden, and Kraft. And I'd probably same thing because Love, he can run, but he's not primarily a runner. So same thing I said with Purdy. I want 2 pass catchers with him if I'm going to stack him. And then I don't like Jacobs in this game. I think the Lions are going to be a good run defense. Again, I think they're improved defensively. I don't care about any of that. Nobody's going to play him. We know the touchdown upside he has. So let's just say that he's not getting a ton of yards, but they just happen to get down to the goal line and he scores 2 touchdowns again. Would anybody be surprised? And he is going to be extremely low owned. So I'm willing to take chances on this game despite having absolutely no idea how it's going to turn out.
I love the Jacobs call because I agree. No one's talking about him for DFS purposes. And to me, you said it right there. He's a guy who, even in a situation where maybe he's not going to get 120 total yards, he could end up with 60 total yards, but 2 touchdowns very easily. It's very easy. And he has, he's a guy who, that in the red zone, the ball goes through him. There's no constant. He's one of the few backfields where it's an absolute. You know where the ball is going to go in the red zone. It's going to Josh Jacobs. They're going to run the ball first and foremost, and then it's a throw afterwards, right? I love it. I love the Jacobs call, man. Good stuff there.
And then just while you were talking to, I figured, why not? Let's look at it. So Bijan is the most expensive on the slate, 8,800. You can get Jacobs for $1,000 less at 7,800. Their ceiling projection right now, Bijan is 24.2, Jacobs is 23.7. Yep. So, and you're probably going to get him at half the ownership for $1,000 less. So, I do like that quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. It, like I said, just makes a tremendous amount of sense there.
And then the last game we have on the slate. Probably not going to be a lot of interest on this one from a DFS standpoint. Don't really know if I would go there from a betting standpoint. These are teams we have a lot of questions about. The Rams, obviously, it all just comes down to Stafford. How healthy is he? You would think that in this first game, it's probably the healthiest he's going to be all season, but it's still a little bit concerning. So I don't think I can get there. 43.5 is the total. So maybe you want some pieces DFS-wise, but they're pretty expensive. Kyron 6.5, Puka 7.6. Devontae at 6.1 might be my favorite just because he's the cheapest of the bunch. And then if I'm playing anybody on Houston, it's Nico Collins at 7.4K, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, you can't trust anything in the Houston backfield. So you can't play anything out of the backfield. And I'm with you. I think, opposite of Collins, now Kirk got the questionable tag. You don't know if he's playing. So then you're going, well, it's either, it's Higgins or Noel. And so I just don't trust anything opposite of that. I think Nico Collins, maybe if you're really looking at it, I guess you can go Dalton Schultz, but he, to me, just not worth the play because I can go, I can spend up a little bit and go get Tucker Kraft, and I just know that he's a much more athletic and much more dynamic type player. So overall, I'm with you on that from a DFS perspective. I just don't see any value in the game. I from a betting perspective, I actually I kind of like the Texans at plus 145 on a money line perspective.
I can see it.
And the only reason why is I just don't know what you're going to get out of Stafford. And I think the Houston defense will be a little bit better. I think D'Amico Ryans has come in. He's been able to put together a little bit of an offseason where I think he's changed a few things up from what I've heard. And then offensively, I guess, we got that sophomore slump a little bit from Stroud. I'm thinking he's just a touch better than what we saw last year. I don't know that he gets to the rookie season level production, but I think he is a little bit better than last year. I think Nico Collins coming in, fully healthy and things like that helps him. My only concern with that is the backfield. I'm concerned about who is actually going to get the touches there. And, if it's Nick Chubb, I'll tell you this. If they're going to try to run the ball through Nick Chubb 16 times, I'm jumping off that ship. I'm going to bet the other side live. I want nothing to do with it. But if
I think they're probably going to split time with Chubb and Pierce, at least in the first game, kind of see I could see it being a hot hand situation potentially. I don't know. It's tough to say.
It is. I just, again, I lean the Houston Texans side. I don't love it, but I lean that way because it just feels like, 3.5 to me is, I know it's not a huge number, but it is a little bit of a big number for a Rams team. I know they're playing at home, but there are a bunch of question marks there. Specifically at the quarterback, we just don't know what you're going to get out of Stafford. And so, I just have again, there's enough concern there that I'm going to gently back away from that. I'm not sure I'm going to have any part of this game really.
Yeah. And it's funny because if Stafford was fully healthy and there were no questions, this is probably another game that you say, you know what, this is great. Two dome teams in a dome have some big play upside guys. It would definitely be someone to target. So maybe from a game theory standpoint, you don't want to over target, but if you wanted to go Puka, bring it back with Nico, obviously that's expensive, but we went through several options that are pretty cheap stacks.
Right.
So that could be your exposure to this game. And would you be surprised if Puka and Nico were two of the 5 highest scoring wide receivers on the slate?
No, not at all. To your point. Yeah, I agree with you. You're absolutely right there that if you're going to get some exposure, that's the way to do it, is go with the known quantities, commodities on these two teams. Because to your point, if I knew Stafford was healthy, this game has some appeal to me. I think the total is probably at least 2.5, 2 points, 3 points higher in, from a Vegas perspective, line perspective, if we knew what we were getting from Stafford. So,
yeah. And then from a DFS standpoint, I will say Houston's defense obviously gets pressure on the quarterback. I think they are going to be incredibly popular. They are way underpriced at only 2.5K. So just keep that in mind if you're putting them in your lineup. If they're really up there, you rarely want to play a 30% owned defense. The Rams defense actually might even make some sense on the other side. This was a terrible offensive line. We just talked about the fact that they might not have any running backs. So they were looking pretty good last year. 3.4K isn't ridiculously expensive, so maybe that's worth a shot as a low-owned defense.
That's a good call there.
Thinking out loud.
No, that's a good call.
One other thing I'm thinking is, with Kirk hurt, I want to look at what Higgins' receiving prop is, because he's going to be the number 2. If if Kirk's not playing, he could get a good amount of time. And I bet you that with Kirk hasn't been ruled out yet, he could have a pretty low total here. Let's just doing this live. I know we're filling time here and it's not the greatest listening experience, but
I was doing the same thing. I was trying to get there while you were talking. I'm like, oh, let me see if I can. It looks like it's
25 yards, 25 yards minus 102. That's
okay.
Not bad. That's not bad.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
He probably the guy that could have a pretty high A dot. So I mean, he could get that on one catch.
Right. I mean, easily.
I might be putting that in when we get off here and check some other books, see if I can maybe get a little bit better of a number. But that's definitely something that, because I would imagine book to book too, is they're looking at this differently, and it might even be lower on some books. So I'm going to look into that.
I like what I like how you're thinking, man. I like how you're thinking there. That's a good call.
But that's for this week. We went through all the games. It's time. It is. I mean, we are less than an hour away from NFL kickoff Thursday night, so I'm excited. Mike, any closing words here?
Let's just enjoy it. Let's enjoy the games.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no need to be tilting your DFS or betting lineups literally the first quarter of the first game. So everybody just chill out. Enjoy it. It's been a long time since football's been back. I don't want to hear the complaining yet. Wait till Monday,
That's right.
All right?
That's right.
All right, Mike, let everybody know where to find you.
You can find me on X at J5MikeM. Come join us at the MadLabMMA.com, please. We have just such a great community. You got Derek, who does, I mean, he's part of our currency cartel and does a great job, but join us because we're just a great group of guys and just a fantastic community. We do full service. We do all kinds of sports. We do everything from golf, football, basketball, baseball. Obviously we do MMA and combat sports. But then we do fun stuff like the Tour de France and darts and soccer as well. So we've got you covered. There's never a dull moment.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I will see you in a couple minutes in the Discord.
I'll see you there.
All right, Mike. So that's going to do it for this week. As you just heard, head over to the madlabmma.com. We have you totally covered. Everything you need is in there. Any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at The Helm Sports. I mean, we get a lot of new listeners. So if anybody is new to betting, DFS, I have some previous episodes that you could listen to and get caught up. Or if you have any questions, just DM me on X or Twitter. But if you are still listening at this point, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a review. It goes a long, long way. We are in week 1, going to have a lot of new listeners. So welcome. I am not a trained professional in this. I am not a professional DFS player or a professional handicapper, but I have been doing this for a very long time and have lost a lot of money and learned a lot of lessons. So trying to get more profitable. Last year we were pretty profitable, so we're going to keep the train on the tracks there and help you along the way. But that's going to do it for this week. Very excited for week 1. I'm your host, Derek Helm.
And just have fun out there.